Fáilte chuig Rang Gaeilge, your go-to Irish grammar website.
Today we'll take a look at na Aimsir again, but more specifically the Aimsir Láithreach, or present tense. But first, over to Kevin for a few important grammar concepts.
Before we dive into the tenses, there are two very important grammar concepts that need to be crystal clear in your mind. So here's a little refresher for you. First up is the Cunsan Lahan and Cunsan Quail rule. In Irish, a word either has a broad consonant, Cunsan Lahan, or a slender consonant, Cunsan Quail. It's very easy to tell which is which because a Cunsan Lahan will have either an A, O, or U as its last vowel, and a Cunsan Quail will have either an I or an E as its last vowel. This is a term that comes up all the time in Irish, so make sure you take a note of it and remember it. Now that you know what the Latin and Quail vowels are, we can teach you the golden rule of Irish spelling. I'm sure you've all heard of Latin la Latin, Quail la Quail, but what does this actually mean? Simply put, the vowel after a consonant must be the same type of vowel, i.e. Latin or Quail, as the last vowel before that consonant. For example, if we look at the word adiocht, there is a slender vowel before the D, therefore there is also a slender vowel after the D. In this case, both slender vowels happen to be I. This rule applies to 99% of Irish words, so learn it well. Now back over to Louise.
Okay, that's enough of that. Back to the Aimsir Láithreach. There are no ahrú tusig in the present tense, so don't worry about that. However, you're not off the hook because there's a little bit more to the rest of the verb. First, let's take a look at one-syllable Latin verbs. We never use the word may in the Aimsir Láithreach. Instead, we add aim to the end of the verb. For example, glonam, I clean. When we are using to, she, she, shiv, or shead, we add ann to the end of the verb. For example, glonan to, you clean. And we don't use the word shiv, but instead add aimid to the end of the verb. Glonamud, we clean. Next, let's look at one-syllable quail verbs. Because we never use may in the Aimsir Láithreach, and because of the rule Lahan la Lahan, Quail la Quail, when talking about may, we add im to the end of the verb, like film, I return. When we are using to, she, she, shiv, or shead, we add eann to the end of the verb to obey the Lahan la Lahan, Quail la Quail rule. Like Phil and Shay, he returns. And instead of shin, we add imid to the end of the verb, like Philamid, we return. That's all for the Shula Awan verbs, so let's take a look at Gaeilge. For Latin verbs with Gaeilge, instead of may, we add I father m to the root of the verb, like ceannaíonn, I buy. For to, she, she, shiv, and shead, we add ai father onn to the root of the verb, ceannaíonn shead, they buy. And instead of shin, we add ai father mid to the root of the verb, ceannaíonn mead, we buy. Next, let's take a look at quail verbs with Gaeilge. Instead of using may, we add I father m to the root of the verb, volume, I collect. For to, she, she, shiv, and shead, we add I father onn to the root of the verb, like volume shiv, you collect. And instead of shin, we add I father mid to the root of the verb, Balia Mead, Weekale. Now we just have to learn how to ask questions in the Aimsir Láithreach. To ask a question, you use on followed by an uru. To answer a question positively, you use the verb in its standard Aimsir Láithreach form. And to answer a question negatively, you use ni followed by a shevu. Agus sinné.
If you haven't already, do check out www.wronggaeilge.com for a downloadable 10-point summary, activity questions and answers on this topic, and much, much more.